Hello, everybody, and welcome to Running Free Live, right here from glorious Melbourne. And I just want to give a big fat shout out to everybody in Melbourne here tonight. We love you all to bits. And I also want to say thank you to ACMI, who are the producers with us, and also for the wonderful support of Film Victoria. I'm really looking forward to tonight's session because it's about crowdfunding, but I'm more interested because there's a great posse of amazing filmmakers here who are just going to tell us all about how they've done crowdfunding. And we're going to talk about why choose it, how does it happen, what can it lead to, and we've got loads of clips to show you from great productions that have come out of crowdfunding. Now, that doesn't mean it's all beer and roses. It's quite tough, but they'll tell you about that in a minute. Please feel free to text us questions, and please, can we have simple questions? Because like long diatribes are a little bit hard to get through when we're just trying to ask quick questions. And the number there is 0468 328 374, and they'll come through to me and I'll feed them into the discussion as we go. That's the housekeeping. Now I want to introduce our amazing guests, and I hope they'll each wave and say hello so that we know who's who as I go around. First up, Monica Zanetti, the amazing producer, director, everything of Ellie and Abbie and Ellie's aunt, which is going to be talking about tonight. Alyce Adams from Screen Australia's online department.
Hello.
Hi. And we've got Scott Stewart, who's the brains behind My Shadow Was Pink. And if you saw our posts online, you've seen a little clip of that, but we'll be playing something like that tonight. Welcome, Scott. And we have Anna Tiwary, who's, oh my God, this woman has a world premiere for us tonight. I am so excited. It's a world premiere of her promo for Rhapsody of Love, Australia's first, get it, first Asian rom-com out of crowdfunding. Awesome stuff. Rosie Lord, oh my goodness, her work is amazing. And she's got a little clip for us for a Netflix show, which is actually on the 24th of September, called Romance on the Menu. Hello, Rosie. And Alan Crabbe, he brought crowdfunding really to the sort of Australian Asian market, I guess, Australasian market maybe, 10 years ago. And he's from Pozible, and he's going to be our sort of brains trust tonight, running us through what's involved. Hi. Right. That's a huge introduction. I'm going to stop talking now. After I ask you all a question, why did you all go to crowdfunding first? What was it that had attracted you? Take your pick, babe. Off you go. Monica, come on, help me out.
Yes, hello. Sorry, Zoom etiquettes. Well, I guess it's probably good to point out that I've crowdfunded twice. Once on Skin Deep with Rosie Lord, who's right there, and then for Ellie and Abbie, this was my second time crowdfunding. And if I'm honest, I didn't want to go to it again. I wanted to do it the right way, but I think as most people know, in order to access any kind of funding models or the main funding models in Australia, you need a distributor pretty much up front first. And while I could get, quite a lot of distributors excited about the script, it was very, very hard getting them over the line with particularly our cast, because I was very adamant about having a 50% at least queer identifying cast, basically the cast we have now. And when I kind of couldn't get them over the line for that, and it was kind of going to be compromising on that or having to do it another way, I decided to return to crowdfunding, basically.
Okay, we'll talk in a bit more detail about the Ellie and Abbie movie in a minute. Rosie, you have, as Monica was just saying, you crowdfunded together, but you also crowdfunded something else, and my notes are letting me down here, which actually had phenomenal numbers of views online, and it was a series you also acted in. Was that your first effort at crowdfunding, or was it a later one?
No. Skin Deep was the first one. So Monica and I worked hand in hand to put together Skin Deep, which was the first project I ever produced, actually. And then whilst that was in post-production, I started acting in the web series Starting From Now, which is the name that you were trying to find just then, which was Julie Kalseff's absolute magical piece of work. So it's the online lesbian love drama series. And we crowdfunded for season 3, which was before we'd even started conversations with Screen Australia. Screen Australia came on board for seasons 4 and 5. And as did SBS at the time. So yeah, I did crowdfunding for the feature for Skin Deep and then for the web series for Starting From Now. And as you just referenced, Starting From Now's numbers, we actually stopped counting when we hit 135 million.
Oh, as you would.
Yeah. Well, that was about 2 years ago. So with COVID, it's probably worth us having another look at the numbers and seeing where we're up to now, because I think they might have bumped up just a little bit.
Wow, that's phenomenal. I love that. And what about you, Anna? Was this your first go at crowdfunding, or you crowdfunded a doc, I think, before, didn't you?
Yeah, so that was a really interesting experience, and I learned a lot from that.
Was that, which documentary was that?
It's called Turban Legends, and it was a documentary that I independently produced and directed, and it aired on ABC. And while crowdfunding for that, I learned that crowdfunding is way more than just, raising money for a project, which is like the most important thing. But another really important, valuable thing that came out of that experience was that I was able to sort of find a community and support around the project. So Turban Legends was a documentary about this Sikh youth in Australia. And I basically connected with a lot of, the main community leaders, Sikh community leaders across Australia. And it was really wonderful to see the amount of support the project got. So within 4 days, we were able to raise $11,000 or so.
Wow.
But there was a lot of work that went in behind the scenes, building relationships and talking about the project that went on for months before that. But yeah, and then there was matched funding that I got through ACF and CPA, Creative Partnerships Australia, I think it's called. And that was really wonderful. So altogether, I think we raised about 21,000 to support the project.
Wow.
But the most powerful thing was getting a whole community behind the project, people learning about it in advance. So the promotion that happened. So there were a lot of people waiting for the documentary to come out. So when it came out, it did really well in terms of ratings because it had been promoted so much.
Yeah. Scott, you went crowdfunding for a bit of a different reason, didn't you? You talked to me much more around strategy, which we're going to come to a bit more when we play your clips. But what led you to crowdfunding?
So my story, My Shadow is Pink, it's about a young boy who's breaking gender stereotypes. And I'd been speaking to a lot of production companies and networks, and everybody agreed that a show like this for young kids should be made, but everybody was hesitant to be the company that actually does that, and they were worried about whether it actually had commercial appeal. And so I really wanted to go crowdfunding, not just to be able to raise the funds to create a short film, but also basically to prove to the market that there is a commercial market for a story like this. And I knew it would go okay. I already had not a massive, but a reasonable online following of about like 250,000 people, and really engaged.
Reasonable.
And so I knew that we would get a lot of support behind it. And at the time, my book that it's based on was coming out kind of halfway through when the campaign was scheduled. And so I knew I had a lot of media kind of happening around that. So everything was kind of pushing to actually make that launch then through crowdfunding, and actually get networks and production companies actually seeing it rather than me kind of approaching and seeing the media that it was getting. And very fortunately, that's exactly what's happened. Now we've got production companies and networks kind of coming to me, and just massive media opportunities. And so it's kind of really broken that barrier for those companies.
All right. Well, we'll talk more in detail as well. Now, Alyce, before you were at Screen Australia, you did make a web series that you thought about crowdfunding, but in the end you went, why?
Yeah, so I work at Screen Australia in the online department. So we fund web series, and my pathway to getting that job was doing my own web series. And it was something that we thought about as a lot of kind of, uni students, that's what you do in your film degree when you're making your short film, or for us was the web series is, okay, should we crowdfund? Us, having seen a lot of friends go through it and do it, we just knew that it was a lot of work, that it would kind of take away from us being able to actually do the series. And we kind of felt like this was a small enough idea that we could pay for it ourselves. And then basically, I guess, knowing that you can only ask people for money so many times, and we felt like we wanted to save that opportunity for later down with a potentially a bigger project, or having success behind us, so that we could then point to what we've done in the past, and this is why we are asking you for money. So we ultimately didn't go down that route.
Good. Okay. Alan, you were the one whose company sort of introduced crowdfunding to the market, 10 or 11 years ago here in Australia with Pozible. Why did you do that? I mean, what was your thinking behind it?
Yeah, it's 10 years, I say. We're celebrating 10 years just a month ago. The reason, I think it was the same kind of challenges that most creatives, I think, generally find, especially at the earlier stages of their career. We were working at the time with lots of visual artists, and I used to create a platform for visual artists to sell and pre-sell artwork online. And it was incredibly challenging, actually. And as a platform, we're hosting a lot of artists, but we weren't selling a lot. And I'd spotted this concept. I'd followed a publication that was following new trends and things around the world. And I spotted this being used, what's now called crowdfunding, being used in the music industry. And then I've seen it used in the film industry. And I thought, okay, this is something that I could use for these visual artists to actually just raise a bid to actually put on an exhibition. We're generally finding the same feedback from people and users on the platform, that they wanted to get to know the artist, they wanted to know their story before they committed potentially thousands into buying this artwork. So that was really, I suppose, the point that we decided, okay, let's pivot from what we were creating with this platform for visual artists to a platform of more of a campaign based to get something off the ground with projects. And we launched in May 2010, going back 10 years, a very different environment in terms of social and video and all of these things. But it really just took off overnight, actually. We had our first successful campaign on our first day, actually, of launch. We had sold more or pre-sold more in that first day than we had for the entire month, actually, with our visual art platform. And I think looking back, it was we just didn't expect, I suppose, what we would see from this as a model. But I think in hindsight, it's easy to see, I think, why some of these things, why these projects actually started to take off, and why I think a lot of, for the same reasons as many of you guys have just spoken about, the reasons that people use this as a model to build audience, to engage with the audience, and hopefully raise some funds to make something happen. So
one of the questions we just had from our audience is, can you explain, it's a question I should have asked at the beginning, really. Can you explain what crowdfunding actually is, please? So Alan, you're in the hot seat. So give me a log line and a minute. Way you go.
Okay, yeah. So crowdfunding means a lot more now than it did back in May 2010, actually, when we launched. So crowdfunding itself is very much a very broad way of raising funds from large numbers of people online. I think that's probably the most basic definition of what crowdfunding is. I think if you looked at crowdfunding as of 2020, you break it down by different types of and different models of crowdfunding, where you may have like personal crowdfunding for more donation-based campaigns. You have reward-based crowdfunding, which is very much what Pozible is and what it started as. We also have what we call equity crowdfunding, so small businesses using crowdfunding to raise investment by issuing shares in their business. And we also have some debt-based crowdfunding as well. But I think for the purpose of this chat tonight, like we're very much talking about the reward-based crowdfunding and maybe a bit of donation-based crowdfunding in that, because like to a certain extent, there's a patronage element to actually making these projects happen through crowdfunding. And I think it's nearly as much that than it is of people getting something in return for supporting these projects. So
okay, cool, thank you. All right, well look, I want to rip into the first one actually, because I think the more we talk about some examples, and we are going to come back to you, Alan, in a minute too. You can do a screen share and talk us through how people do it. But let's start. At least one of the biggest crowdfunding successes was, of course, Miss Fisher.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give out, like, before we get to the guest tonight, that was off the planet? Can you just tell us what you saw from Screen Australia's perspective on Miss Fisher?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I, not in the PI feature department, but I was aware of it because people were talking about it. They ended up raising $733,000. And I found it really interesting because obviously the show had already been out for a number of years and was finished. And like I had heard of it, but I hadn't watched it. And it was only when the campaign was getting so much steam behind it that I was like, oh, I should check it out. And it was only because it sold to Netflix that it kind of opened up this global audience. So before it had its own fan base in Australia, but that was still small compared to what they were able to then gain from going on such a bigger platform. And the demand for the feature, you can see, is connected to how wide that audience was able to spread thanks to Netflix in a way. And then, that successfully led to them raising a really significant amount of money that the producers were able to bring into Screen Australia to demonstrate, hey, there is an audience for this series, and we want to take it to the big screen. And
let's not forget, you got a set visit out of it. You might just confess.
Yes. As
a fan girl.
I did ask to go on set, and that was really cool. That was definitely a highlight.
Okay, now I'm going to go to our first clip, which is Ellie and Allie's Dead Up. Excuse me, it triggered this session for me because I watched it at the Melbourne Film Festival and I just bloody loved it. And then I heard this discussion afterwards with Monica and a whole bunch of other people where she talked crowdfunding. And I went, oh my God, a film like that has to go for crowdfunding. So let's have a look at the teaser for it, because I just think it's amazing. And then we'll talk to Monica about how it all went. So clip one, please, Simon.
I'm putting it out into the universe that I did not just like a post from 6 months ago.
Still in school, Captain?
Nothing, just gone to class.
Lunch.
Yeah.
You know those people who make fun of you because you drink almond milk? It's not my fault I'm lactose intolerant.
I'm gay. You're such a bigot.
That went really well.
How would you feel if a strange woman showed up in your bathroom claiming to be your dead aunt?
Let's bring it in.
Coming out is hard, and I have been sent here to help you through it.
What about grandchildren?
Oh, come on, shut up.
Here is a list of conversation topics. We're making this a big deal and it's no big deal.
What is on this note?
Don't be such a
No.
Hey, congratulations on your film, Monica. I just can't wait till it's in the cinemas. I hope next year, I think, isn't it? That people will be able to see it broadly?
Yes, that's the plan.
Great. fingers crossed. So you talked briefly before about the obstacles in getting funding because just explain a little bit more, because when you told me, I was just a bit gobsmacked that it's all great about diversity until it's really about diversity, isn't it? From what you were saying.
Very, very similar to what Scott was saying. It was that thing of everyone saying like, oh, this should exist. Someone should do that. And I was like, it could be you. And they were like, yeah, but, at one point someone was like, if you could just rewrite the mum and make it a dad, like that could get us more on board because, there's more male actors that can sell a film. Like, it was just endless things of, conversations that everyone, I think, in the industry has had when they've tried to make any kind of project, with a point of difference. And so that was kind of these ongoing conversations. And I just realized that the same kind of thing, like I just need to make it and show it to them, because I knew there was a clear pathway to audience. I knew who that audience was. We, had already connected with them with Skin Deep and the huge success that Rosie and Julie's web series that had. I was like, this audience is there. And so I'm just going to have to make it and I'm just going to have to show them. And so, and like I said, I was reluctant to crowdfund again, but then I applied for the same program that Anna was just talking about, the Match Lab, with creative partnerships, which I got accepted into. And that was wonderful. Like that kind of, I think, was a real deal changer for me and how I looked at crowdfunding, even being someone who had crowdfunded before. All that stuff of about, building a community, which, I should know, and that, and also the whole thing about, like what Alan was saying about it, the being a patron, that means more to people really than rewards at the end of the day. Usually it's about patronage and the importance of that, and that's something really valuable. And instead of looking at this, like going to people being like, I'm so sorry, I'm crowdfunding again, can you please give me money? About looking at it as, we were creating a product for an audience and, really kind of feeling empowered by that. So that was a really big lesson for me. One of the things I think that I did that made a real big difference, and I should also point out that I didn't actually produce Ellie and Abbie. I had a wonderful producer, Marvine. And one of the things we did was shoot a teaser and take it straight to that audience when we were crowdfunding. So Lisa Rose, who runs the Mardi Gras Film Festival, allowed us to screen this teaser before films at the Mardi Gras Film Festival, which was our target audience. So we would go, we'd play this little scene that we'd shot, and then I would talk to the audience and, say, if you'd like to donate, if you'd like to see more of this, donate to us, and you can. And that was a really, really valuable tool because it built that community and people were excited about it and following along the journey, and that made a big difference in our crowdfunding journey. But we were raising $40,000, which was a huge amount on crowdfunding.
Wow.
It was almost too much, I would say. It was a full-time job, and it was really, it took it out of me because you just had to be on it all the time, emailing people, responding to people, being there. It was just not something, I could never quite relax while we were doing it. I'm so grateful that we did it and the experience that we had with it, but it was very exhausting.
Is that everybody's experience? I can see a lot of people going like that in front of me, so I'm assuming it is.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that's really important when you go into it, is knowing that it is a job. The crowdfunding part itself is going to be, as take over your life as much as actually making the project. It's not something you can set and forget, really. You've got to be so actively involved in it. So we raised the money and then got the extra $10,000 from Creative Partnerships Australia, the Match Lab, because that's what they do. They match your crowdfunding campaign up to $10,000. So we obviously were going higher, but we got $10,000 from them. So we had $50,000, which we shot the film on. So everything you see on the screen, we filmed for $50,000 in 10 days. Yeah, it was real quick.
Like how many days shooting did you do for that?
10.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's brilliant.
Which was what we had done on Skin Deep. So unfortunately for everyone, I was like, I know it can be done. I know it's, it's not fun, but it can be done. So we got it in the can, and then basically what happened was that then 2 days later, I got on a plane and went to Cannes Film Festival with a little teaser that we'd cut together in 2 days. And that was where I just went and I just pitched it to everyone. And it was through that trip that kind of what I was hoping would happen. That's when we first connected with Screen Australia, who were now like, yes, we would love to help you finish this. It's where we had the first conversations with our distributor, and it's also where we got our post-production deal with Steve Jaggi. And so that's all those things together all happened once I had it, which I was hoping would happen. And then luckily that is what happened.
I mean, one of the things that you seem to all have in common is stories of diversity and difference. Do you think that those sort of stories are tougher to get off the ground? I mean, you mentioned it, Monica, before that, they were adamant that, I remember you saying to me in the interview that, well, you were gay, that was enough. You didn't have to be going on about the cast as well. I mean, is that something that you feel is a driver for crowdfunding? And it's a question for Anna as well, really, with your mouthful of tea.
Yes, I think it is, just because when you've got something that you, and like I said, like I knew that audience was there, like I'm sure Anna, knew that audience was there, and it's, instead of, I think it's really, of course, I mean, it's not easy to accept that someone's saying, no, you can't make this. It's incredibly heartbreaking. And if you've got enough in you to then keep going,
yeah, it
really is this path forward.
Yeah. Anna, we're going to talk about your film later, but I'm just going to actually go to Scott now, because I think that My Shadow is Pink. I'm just going to, before we talk to you, I'm just going to play the first little clip that I saw on TikTok, I think it was, which sort of, it's the clip that kicked it off for you, really, isn't it? Is that right?
Yeah, it definitely is the thing that kind of kicked off the audience and, the exposure, for sure.
Okay, let's just have a quick look at that. I cry. I get all weepy every time I watch that, because it's bloody awesome. I mean, I have to get the others to be able to hear the story that you told me of actually going to Frozen with your son and your partner Mel, dressed as the princess. I mean, what was it like?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so my son has been completely in love with Elsa since he was about 3 years old. So, we'd kind of had 3.5 years of him just loving Elsa. And then, when the Frozen 2 premiere was coming out in Melbourne, he was, desperate to, wear the Elsa dress and have a big Frozen party beforehand and all those sorts of things. And so as it got closer, he was just hitting the age where he was starting to get a bit worried that people might laugh at him. And so as we got really close, just to help him kind of get over the line and, do the thing that he really wanted to do, I jumped on Amazon. I bought the biggest Elsa dress you can find. My wife grabbed one as well. And we all went together. And I mean, I was terrified, a 35-year-old dude, just completely terrified of what everyone was thinking of me, which was kind of ridiculous. And I remember going down the big escalator, and there was everybody down at the IMAX was kind of looking up at us and laughing and talking. And we got off the escalator, and this dad left his family, came across to us and just said, "Mate, that is just the greatest thing I've ever seen." And that really kicked off the entire evening of just really beautiful interactions and reactions. And so yeah, and then in about April I decided to share it online. I was completely against, sharing our journey online, particularly with my son, and my wife basically said to me, Scott, there are, young boys out there who love all things Elsa and dresses, and they're not accepted or loved for who they are, and they really need, somebody to come on there, come online and show them some acceptance and love. So I did that, and yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny to say in March I had 334 followers online, and now it's just blown completely crazy. Just the reaction has been unbelievably beautiful.
I mean, it was a bit of a stretch for you too, you rugby player. It wasn't something that you did have to challenge a few things about yourself as well, didn't you?
Yeah, so I definitely grew up in country Queensland, very rigid definitions of masculinity. So there was levels of discomfort, I'm not proud of, but, got through that. And, that's one thing that, everybody has really been resonating with is, sharing this kind of really authentic journey of, the reality of like, sometimes men have a lot of discomfort around, breaking down masculinity and working through it. And yeah, so it's actually turned into a really, a massive blessing, and particularly, because when my son first fell in love with Elsa, he got bullied for it at childcare, and so I started looking for media that represented a young boy who broke gender stereotypes, and at the time it was really, really hard for me to find any. I've since discovered that there was far more at the time than I could find, and so I started writing My Shadow is Pink back then, 4 years ago, and the timing of it all kind of coming together this year has just been nothing but serendipitous.
So you launched it. I'm just going to get Simon, can you please play the second clip? Because this is the clip you launched, which is going to lead us into a bit more of a logistics discussion on how it all works. So let's play the second clip.
When my son was 3, he fell completely in love with Queen Elsa. He used to have this Elsa doll that he used to take everywhere with him. One day he came home from childcare, crying, completely distraught, because somebody had told him that Elsa was for girls. Now that night I sat down and I wrote the first draft of my book, My Shadow is Pink, and now I'm turning it into a film. It's about a young boy born with a pink shadow that wishes more than anything he had a blue shadow like his dad. It's a story of daring to be different and having the courage to be true to yourself. It's going to be a short animated film, and I need your help. I'm launching a Kickstarter to help raise funds to pay for the artists, the animators who can help bring this together. So head to the link in my bio. Let's show our kids they can be celebrated on screen for exactly who they are. Thank you.
Loving the nail polish there too, I might add.
Yeah, it's my son's new thing. He has fallen in love with nail salons and all things about it.
And how's it going now? Because you've completed the first stage, haven't you?
Yes, so we successfully raised 75,000 through the Kickstarter campaign, and now we're basically in, obviously like making the short film, but also now in discussions with production companies and networks about turning it into an ongoing series and a feature film adaptation. So the Kickstarter campaign has been nothing but amazing for us, but it was definitely something that when it started, I was, I'm sure everybody can relate, I was unbelievably terrified. And I had this really kind of strange notion that, particularly because of the content of my story, I was really worried that if the Kickstarter campaign failed, didn't raise the amount of money, that would basically just prove to an industry that these stories aren't something that people want, and so yeah, that video that you just showed, I launched that about a week before I started my Kickstarter campaign. I drove people from there into an email list. I just asked them to join an email list. I was fortunate enough to have about 10,000 people sign up for that email list in that week leading up to the campaign. which then, it made the start of the campaign really great, because I think the first 24 hours we raised about $25,000. And then that just kind of like rolled, on for the month. And, fortunately, had, as I said before, I had a decent audience that I could, go out to and spread the word. And from there, we got a lot of media. I was on a lot of morning shows, and, particularly over in the States, and just tons of like BuzzFeed articles and all sorts of stuff. But definitely in those first 2 weeks, I was really focused on getting like big media, like those, Today shows and all those sorts of things. And within 2 weeks, I kind of realized that those big media outlets didn't actually do much for the fundraising. They were great for brand, but they didn't actually do much at all. And so then from there, we really focused in on, I guess you'd call like influencers in the space around your LGBTQ community, around parents, particularly like parents who are same-sex parents. And from there, we really started to kick things off. And then in the last couple of days, a couple of celebrities like Danny Minogue, and that kind of featured the story, and that really got us over the line. But it was definitely, we finished raising, we hit 75,000 like 4 hours before the campaign finished. But really beautifully, as Monica was saying about kind of the patrons. That day, the final day, I was getting bombarded with emails from, people who had backed the campaign, people who hadn't backed the campaign, basically saying, let us know where you are with an hour to go. We'll put it over the line no matter what, So, people really engaging with the campaign and the message behind it. One thing that I think we did okay was we really kind of stuck to the message, which was, breaking down these gender stereotypes on screen for specifically, in this case, young boys. And that really helped, get us over the line and, get that attention that we really needed.
Okay, great. Rosie, what's your take on, because that's a great story with a clear message, very clear trailers and things. What's your take on what people have to do to get things across the line from your experience?
Well, and Scott's story is just extraordinary. And I have to say, I don't think I've ever had so much success coming so easily on a crowdfunding campaign ever. So however you did that is just an absolute feat of genius. But from what you've just been talking about are the things that I would recommend to everyone, putting together a campaign of how you're going to promote it, like what Monica was saying, and I know how Anna did Rhapsody of Love as well, having a campaign of how you can constantly be reaching out to people and getting the request in front of the right people. Monica's strategy of creating that teaser clip and playing it at the Mardi Gras Film Festival and then speaking directly with the audience is just also genius. So it is a huge effort to create a crowdfunding campaign and to keep that conversation going and to diversify what the message is that you're constantly getting in front of people. So it's not just always, hey, give me your money. Give me your money. Oh, give me your money. Hey, you know what? Just give me some money. It really needs to be shaken up and be a much broader marketing strategy across the length of the campaign. And Scott having that incredible situation where random people who had backed the campaign and people who hadn't backed the campaign reaching out in that final stretch to get across the finish line is something that I also recommend, that you line up with your friends and your family, that because obviously, as Alan was talking about before, there are multiple different ways of doing crowdfunding campaigns. Some of them require you to reach your goal for you to get the money. Some of them don't necessarily require you to reach that goal, and I think the platform takes a bit more of a cut from it. But knowing what the fine print is of the type of strategy you've put together and how many people you need in your back pocket to try and get you across the line at any particular point is really, really important.
Thank you, Alan. I'm busting to get to Anna as well, but firstly I'm going to do what I promised our audience that we're going to do, which is a little bit of show and tell on your screen, because there'll be a lot of people in the crowd that haven't heard of how you actually do one. So could you just, you've got a couple of minutes to sort of talk us through on a sharing screen what's involved in setting up crowdfunding?
Okay, so it's It's pretty simple from a setup perspective, I say, and these guys are so awesome, I say, at explaining exactly the process and what's involved, I say, from a promotion perspective. But I would say it's simple in the fact that it doesn't take too much. So I'm using the example here, a recent example that it's a documentary film that raised 67,000. As you can see, they set themselves a stretch target of 70,000, which is slightly different, and it's new. It's a new kind of way of using the all or nothing model that was talked about. But I'll just talk you through the basics here, actually. So you have a title, you have the people behind the campaign, usually displaying the location and the category of the project that you're doing, and you have your pitch, and you can use lots of multimedia within this to tell the story and provide some details of the project, the people behind it, and potentially even a breakdown of how you're going to use the funds actually to make it happen. You can see here that we have rewards down the side, and as I mentioned, like Pozible is a reward-based platform, so you need at least one reward in return for putting your funds behind the project, and you will keep a campaign up to date through updates like this here. So from a back end, so from a user perspective, setting things up, where did I put that? This one here.
Okay.
You can see it's this is generally what it looks like from setting things up as a campaign. You set everything I mentioned with your target. This is all or nothing, by the way, as well. Like most of our campaigns are all or nothing, very possible. And you have a really good visual hero image. And this is typically used in the likes of your open graph through Facebook. So if people do share it, this is the visual that you want. Well, this is the visual that people share. So you want to make that pretty hard-hitting. And you also set up here the video, which is in most cases actually can sometimes dictate the success or the level of success a campaign has. So we definitely recommend it, particularly for the film industry as well. So, and this is where you would set up rewards. So you can set up rewards of multiple different tiers. And we'd also encourage, like if you're getting advice on this, certain levels of rewards that are more popular in certain countries as well. So it's good to get some advice on some of this as well from the team. So
what your advice in summary in terms of attractive campaigning? I mean, we saw Scott's sort of launch video. I'm interested to know what attracts attention on Pozible.
Yeah. So yeah, this is this is not an easy question to answer. This is this is the whole.
How long is a piece of string, really, isn't it?
Yeah. This is the holy grail of marketing and digital marketing, I would say. But like we've seen a really great clip actually from Scott actually in terms of getting it really succinct, getting your clear messaging about what you do, the title of the project, who you are, and a bit of insight into the story behind the campaign itself, and doing it in a way that is engaging, that you can capture people's emotion very quickly. I think that's the key to get that interest in early, and have something that people will talk about. Like I would say the biggest success factor for crowdfunding is word of mouth. It's having people sit down at dinner and actually share or talk about it to their friends and family. I think we generally look to online for that shareability, but generally you really just want people or friends and family even talking about the campaign. And you can do this through video, or in the case of many successes is getting publicity, like getting hopefully mainstream press to talk about it, and potentially even help on the messaging and how people will actually talk about it with their friends and family and share it online.
What sort of costs are involved in all of this? I mean, because you sort of think there must be quite a lot of costs for people.
Yeah, so this is, I think, like this is one of the biggest changes I've seen in the last probably 5 or 6 years. Like, I've had to revisit every aspect to marketing a campaign, even in the last 2 years, because I've had to relearn it. Because I think when it comes to crowdfunding in the 2020 sense, like, budget obviously needs to go to the pitch in the pitch video and the editing of that to get it right, and hopefully not blowing too much of your budget on that aspect of things. So but I think thinking about some budget towards advertising as well, and this is something that I've only started recommending to people more recently, but I've seen some more recent campaigns, particularly that example I just mentioned about using performance-based marketing to reach audiences, and audiences outside of your own networks as well. So, and maybe even getting expertise in that media and PR as well.
So do you, like, in terms of the setup costs and things, I mean, how does it work? Do you take a percentage, or what's the deal? I mean, I'm not asking you for facts and stats that might be commercially confidential, but I'd love a broad brush for people on how much am I up for? Yeah,
so like for upfront, from a platform perspective, like Pozible, for example, we don't take any fees upfront. I think when it comes to pitch video, preparation, obviously engaging your own connections to help, like in terms of prepping a pitch video is going to be very useful. But and as these guys probably know, they charge quite a bit if it's not to their own projects. So I think depending on the project that you're doing, I think you need to weigh up what that expense and what that budget might be. But that's probably one of the biggest spends that people put into a campaign. And we're talking like it's quite a wide range. It could be 2,000, it could be 15,000. But it really depends on what your target is and what the outcome of the campaign itself.
Okay, all right. Look, I'm busting to see this Rhapsody of Love trailer. So, and Anna's been you've been so patient. Let's play this and let's have a look and then we can talk about it. Thank you, Simon.
Excuse me. I don't think I can do this.
Look at me. Do you love her?
I can get you a juice and maybe my number.
What's your name?
Hugh, as in humongous. I caught ya.
I was placing the flower
In your mouth.
Ben, I met someone. Interesting guy called Justin. What do you love most about your work?
I love creating memories.
And we kissed last night.
Oh no, he has a girlfriend. Hey, we make a pretty good team, don't we?
Me, you, and your girlfriend.
What is even going on between us? Because it feels like you don't even love me anymore.
Well, feels like I'm just here for your inconvenience.
We're the Flower Sisters. We gotta keep blooming. Bloom, 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 Jessica. Drop it. I'll get up, okay?
He kissed you because his heart told him to. It's about time you start listening to yours.
Choose a movie, sis. Crazy middle-class Asians.
I know I'm supposed to be strong and get over it really quick, but it's different this time. I love him.
Some balls for you. And some sausages for you.
They're really small.
Those are.
Wow, I think congratulations. Good on you.
Yeah, you can see we had a lot of fun making Rhapsody of Love. So yeah, and it's just beautiful cast, beautiful team, Joy Hopwood's idea and vision. So yeah, it was really fun to work on, and we decided to do
Joy's done an amazing job, hasn't she, on it? Yeah.
Yeah. she's a real powerhouse. I mean, she just goes for her vision, and she doesn't have time for, waiting around. She's like, I'll write the script, let's just do it. And and so basically funding applications and the whole process didn't fit into our schedule because we just wanted to make it. We didn't want to do any form filling for this one. So we just went and made it. Kept the budget really low. So that really helped. And this is where crowdfunding, really small amounts of crowdfunding really helped us as well along the way. If you want me to talk about a few tips and things that we learned along the way,
yes, please.
I'll just have to put it in a bit of context that our strategy wouldn't suit everyone. It would suit people who are working on a low budget project and are trying to raise small amounts of money. And using crowdfunding more than just raising money, but to find the audience and build a community around the project. And also we are a very small and busy team, and I have a 2-year-old toddler who's I'm running after her all the time, so I don't have time to do a lot of I don't have the time to do a really big and complicated campaign. So our plan was to keep it really simple, extremely simple, but keep it in the spirit of the film. So we really made all our posts as fun and engaging as like a rom-com, So a bit of romance, a bit of cheekiness, a bit of fun with all our posts. But we didn't post too much. We did very few posts. We didn't want to overwhelm people. We didn't want people to feel social media fatigue with what we were doing. Yeah. So just a few key posts with the link to the fundraising campaign every time. And I think a few things that helped us as well was to really talk to people outside before even the campaign started. So really picking up the phone, talking to friends, and really building that community support around it. And also, I think the text that we put on with the social the campaign, we just put very little text. What is the story about? What will we do with the money that we raise? And just kept it really simple. Nobody has time to read so much these days. Everyone is really busy. Even our fundraising video, if you go to the ACF website right now, we've got Rhapsody of Love on there at the moment. You will see that our fundraising video is really, really simple. So we didn't spend too much time or money on that. So for me, the success of a crowdfunding campaign is if you can get maximum benefit from least effort, because otherwise you have to factor in your own time, all sorts of things, and it costs, So on a small budget, we couldn't afford to hire someone to run a whole campaign for us. So it was basically what Joy and I could do between us. I think just one more thing that I wanted to say was that, being respectful to those who support the project. So not treating them as cash cows and then forgetting about them, but taking them on the journey. So as and when we have milestones, like this trailer will come out next week officially. So when this trailer comes out, we will share it, with the people who've been supporting us, just making them feel part of the process and part of the creative process, I guess. So I think sometimes I've supported some projects, maybe 9 or 10 projects, and I just feel like, you donate, but then people forget you, and then you never even get to see the film. So, what happened there? So I think those are some, I've got lots of tips here, but I just wanted to mention a few of them.
No, that's good. And at the end of it, I'm going to do a quick whiz around for tips. So keep them coming in a minute. Alyce, one of the good things about crowdfunding from a funding body's perspective, you mentioned, is the fact that particularly with your online world, it actually is a real leg up towards funding in some ways. Is that fair?
Yeah, totally. I mean, when we're assessing an application, we're looking at the finance plan and how much you're asking us in comparison to the total budget. So do you have any other people on board who are, basically interested in the project? And we really try and encourage creators to think outside the box in terms of just not just relying on government funding, so coming to Screen Australia or having your state agency, but to have other people in there. And one of the ways is by doing crowdfunding, and having, while it's generally, it's going to be smaller than what we can contribute, having it there can indicate to us that, okay, so there are people out there that do want to see this series. We're very focused on kind of pathway to audience and tapping into a niche audience. So if you've already been able to raise money for the project that you're pitching to us, then we know, okay, well, there's a set amount of people who will then check it out when it comes out. So that could be, coming in to get production funding, or it could also be we offer completion funding as well. So one of the web series that we gave completion funding to, Me, which was a Vietnamese Australian web series, Diana, who was kind of the creator of that, she had hustled really hard and got done crowdfunding, had got sponsorships, and had filmed the whole thing using that crowdfunding money, but was kind of stuck and couldn't, finish it off. And so when she came to us, it was a very, easy yes, because we could see all the places that were on board and the work that she had done putting in and coming to us. So we knew that there would be an audience for it because there was already a number of places that were backing it.
Great, that's really useful. And we will, in about 5 or 10 minutes from now, we'll be heading to a little Zoom room so that people can engage directly with people. But before we do that, it's not just about the money, but it's also about the relationships that you build on these films. And Rosie, you and I talked a lot about that when we spoke, because you built, crowdfunding is a really difficult gig, but for you, it was also the relationships you built up with creative, like your executive producer that you talked about.
Yeah.
And particularly, which led you, of course, to Rhapsody of... Romance. I'm getting completely... My loves are all caught up tonight. To Romance on the Menu. Let's play a little clip of that, and then we'll talk about the relationships that you saw. So can we have that one, please, Simon?
Romance on the Menu is a charming love story about life's little chance encounters and, trusting your instinct and listening to your heart. The food fight scene, that was one I was kind of a bit dubious about shooting. I knew that was going to be tough because we had 4 pages of dialogue, which is quite a bit to get through. Then you've got the choreography of who's throwing what, where and when. But we had such a good time and we had an absolute ball. I don't think Cindy or I have done a food fight on camera before, and we loved it. We had a ball. I think viewers will be left with that nice, warm, fuzzy feeling. I hope it encourages people to go with the flow and listen to their heart.
I love the song.
Do you want to dance?
Can't wait to see that. Netflix, September 23, is that right? Have I got
24.
Oh, 24. I'm just a day ahead. I'm so excited. Now, when we were talking, it was that relationship. Here's you, first-time director, sold to Netflix. I mean, hello. So tell us about how, your previous work led to that by the relationships you made.
Absolutely. Well, it was on Skin Deep that I met Steve Jaggi. So Steve Jaggi is the producer of Romance on the Menu, and he was the executive producer on Skin Deep. And I met him because our DOP, Rodrigo Vidal-Dawson, recommended that I go to a networking event because I hadn't produced anything when I first started on Skin Deep. And I knew that there was a lot that I did not know, and I needed to build relationships, and it was the perfect project to do that. And I'm one of those people who I'm very happy to admit when I don't know a thing and to try and find the person who knows the thing and to coerced them into giving me all that knowledge. And so Steve was extraordinary. He came on board to executive produce Skin Deep and to mentor me in producing the project for the first time. And that's when we really first started working together. Obviously, producing a feature as the first ever project and doing it primarily with crowdfunding and with private investment. And then with the assistance of the producer Offset and post-production investment and all of those things stacking up was a huge learning curve where we got to build a really strong friendship. And then Steve went off and did an artistic project of his own that he asked me to act in. And of course I said yes and jumped in on that. And that's Chocolate Oyster that played at Sydney Film Festival a couple of years back. And through all of that, we started talking about which other projects and what other things I wanted to do. And I had previously done some directing for theatre, but never for screen. In the meantime, I did a small VR project as a proof of concept and had been talking about working with Rachel Wiggins and Enzo Tedeschi on their horror anthology, which Alyce Adams over at Screen Australia and Lee Namo got behind and helped support as well. But I hadn't quite done anything in traditional screen, and Steve amazingly had the negotiating power to get Romance on the Menu financed with me having 0 credits at the time, which is just extraordinary. He had a very strong vision for the project, and he again mentored me through what that commercial vision is, because obviously commercial rom-com isn't something that Australia has a long legacy in, but he knew that there was international interest and demand for it. So he helped me put the team together and really advised me across the whole of that process, and then also gave me a lot of creative free rein to work with the writers and with the rest of the team, and our DOP Jason Hargraves on it, and pulling all of the visual set pieces together to really sell what that commercial rom-com look and feel is, which is what Netflix has essentially bought into right now. And I'm overjoyed. I had dreamt and hoped that Netflix would be who picked it up for Australia and New Zealand.
Don't we all? We all?
Yeah. I just cried when he told me. I didn't quite believe it was actually going to happen. And I'm overwhelmed that it is.
Well, congratulations. And I know you've got loads of other things on your slate, as you all have, in fact. But we're going to go to the Zoom in a minute, but there's a couple of questions that I wanted to ask, particularly two. Is it harder in 2020 to get donations? Is it a rubbish time? Who wants to pick that one up? Yeah.
I could maybe mention this because I can see it from lots of campaigns. It's not too different, actually. I think there's considerations you need to do when it comes to messaging and be considerate of what's happening. But at the same time, there is a lot of people that have lots of disposable income and looking for things to get involved with and do whilst they're in lockdown, if you're stuck in Melbourne right now. But it's an interesting, like, obviously there's certain industries, particularly the creative industries, that have been badly affected, but at the same time there's a lot of people that are looking at things to do and get involved with. So I would say overall we've leveled things out. It's not too different yet.
It could be worse, in other words.
It could be worse, yeah.
Okay, and the final question before we wrap this bit of it up. Are there people who specialise in running crowdfunding campaigns, and where can I hire one?
Yes, there is actually agencies that do this. And but my advice, actually, like, depending on the budget that you're going for, like, I think access the people that have done it, have the expertise. Like, this 1 hour session is going to be gold for people that are thinking about this in terms of getting insight. Like, rerunning this and listening to some of the feedback and advice that was given is a start. But I think even spending 20 minutes with someone that has success, has a similar one, is going to be much more valuable than potentially an agency, depending on the budget, I suppose. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, with that in mind, I'm going to do a quick whiz round those who have been crowdfunded and say, what's your quick tip? Go, Monica.
My quick tip is that one big difference I have noticed between crowdfunding in 2012 when we did it for Skin Deep, social media was a big part of that, and that's where we got a lot of our backing and all that kind of support. In 2018, and this might speak more to now, social media wasn't our biggest help at all. In fact, it was emailing and talking to people personally. And so I would very much recommend reach out to people and talk to them personally about it.
Rosie?
I'd say think about what it is that you're offering in exchange, if it is a rewards-based program that you're looking at, and how you can be really clever with what that reciprocation is to really value that relationship that you're building with those investors. So it's not just, hey, have a poster, or if it's a poster, how is it a little bit special? What is that real extra bit of magic that reward can deliver to that relationship to elevate it?
Thank you. I'm coming to you, Anna, so get that list out, but I'm actually going to go to Scott first and get a quick tip from you to wrap your bit up for now.
Yeah, sure. That was amazing advice. What I looked at was I knew that people wouldn't pledge kind of straight away the first time they see a campaign. So one of the things that I did was I put together a whole bunch of really short, like under 15-second videos, and just tested them on, in my network and saw which ones performed like really well with really great engagement. And then I ran ads on those and I sent them to my own website so that I could actually like cookie them, kind of like when you go to, like I looked at bluey face masks for my son and now I see them everywhere, and so I did that so that, as it was getting closer to the end of the campaign, I was actually able to reach out to basically everybody who had already kind of experienced it through ads paid, but that drove a lot of, final pledges.
Anna, get that list out, babe. The floor is yours.
I'll just say a couple of things. One is, let's care about the environment. Don't have rewards that are plastic or stuff, really. Nobody wants more stuff. I think we've got so much stuff. So, so let's just keep that to rewards that are more, things like there could be a mentoring session for someone or something that has more value besides being things. And then whenever you get a chance, talk about your project. Like I'm going to be a bit postmodern and say, hey, Rhapsody of Love is still on the ACM site. Go there and donate, share. So just talk about your project wherever you can, passionately and and get people excited. And all the best.
Awesome. Okay. Well, look, we're all going to head to the Zoom room now. So for those not joining us in the Zoom room, thank you to our audience for listening tonight. I've learnt bloody heaps. Now let's go to the Zoom room. Thanks to you all. See you on the other side.